Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So excuse my voice, you're just gonna have to deal with it. I'm recovering from a little sickness over the weekend, but we got a lot to talk about and we got a busy week ahead of us. So to start off, this week is the week that we leave to California for Kevin's wedding, so really excited about that. I'm gonna put a little screenshot here of the meetup that we're doing. So if you guys are free Thursday night and you're in Southern California, make sure you come out. Obviously my car won't be there, but Kevin's Demon will be there because we're bringing it with us. So that'd be really cool if you guys haven't seen the Demon in person, or if you haven't even seen a Demon in person, but especially Kevin's because it's kind of wild with the rap. So first things first, we have that Thursday at 9 o'clock, and make sure you guys come out. Like I said, I'll put a little screenshot here of it, and I'll probably put it at the end of the video just so you can write down the address if you want to come. But if you're in Southern California and want to come out, make sure you come out. There's like 120 parking spots at this coffee shop, so it's gonna be like a small little car meet also. Small, but 120 cars is pretty good size. So make sure you guys come out to that. All right, so I thought today's video would be kind of cool to go over like the transformation of my Hellcat. I've owned it like a year and 3 months, I believe. So I've owned it a pretty decent amount of time. For me, that's a long time because usually I kick cars to the curb after like 3 to 6 months. I've sold cars in a month before that I didn't like. So it's a 2016 Dodge Challenger Hellcat. It was plum crazy purple with the sepia interior, sunroof, black satin roof, like everything. It was spec'd out to the highest spec that you could get. However, I did buy it used with 300 miles on it. So I got a really good deal on it, and it was actually right as the Hellcats started to depreciate, because you can get them pretty cheap now. If you guys are in the market for a Hellcat, I don't recommend going to buy one at a dealer, because if you look on Private Party, you can get one with low miles for like, I don't know, 45 to 48,000 with decent miles on them. So I wouldn't recommend buying one from a dealer, honestly, because the dealers are still marking them up. But they're only going to get cheaper with the red eyes coming out. Anyways, that's not the point. I just want to throw that out there. But I did get a really good deal on mine, and I bought it only after like a month being in Texas. So kind of like the first thing that I did to it was we had the We Are Mopar coming up in August, and I'd moved here in June. So I wanted to modify the car a little bit. Obviously, first thing we did was window tint. Like, obviously, the first thing you do, put badges on it, just little stuff like that. But I really wanted to do something kind of crazy for We Are Mopar. So I decided to get the car wrapped right before in the digital camo. If you haven't been around since then, I'm going to put a picture up. I'm going to put pictures and videos up when I can of stuff that I have kind of throughout the process of where the Hellcat's gone. But I did wrap it digital camo a week and a half before Misa wrapped it. Did a killer job on it. So it was purple digital camo, and at the same time I decided to put 20-inch drag radials on. And so about a week, 2 weeks before that, I wanted to go to the track, and we took it obviously on the stock tires and realized it doesn't do anything. But it was a roll race event, so it is what it is. Car didn't go that fast, but we did put 20-inch drag radials on. I don't think I have the video, but I'm posting time slips. I ran an 11.6 that night 3 times back to back. I mean, the DA was like 7,000 that night. So that was my first attempt at the track. Actually, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I bought some Mickey Thompson ET Street SS's and put them on the car. And honestly, if you have a Hellcat or something rear-wheel drive that's V8, supercharged, has a decent amount of power, that's like the best 20-inch drag radial you can get. In my opinion, even better than the Nitto, which a lot of people think the Nitto's better. The Nitto lasts longer, but the Mickey Thompson is a lot stickier, just doesn't last as long. Anyways, so we already had the Mickey Thompsons on the car, already had some badges, had tint already, and then we decided to wrap the car right before We Are Mopar, and then I got the bright idea of lowering it right before We Are Mopar, and ran into a huge issue. It's really prevalent that when people are taking the upper control arm off, there's the ball joint attached to it, and when you're trying to get it out, you can strip the threads. And well, I stripped the threads on one side, found out that the ball joint is actually connected to the control arm, so I'd have to get all new control arms up front, the upper ones, both sides. So 2 days prior to We Are Mopar, for us leaving, I had to overnight upper control arms from Speed Logics, and I decided to just get the ABOC ones. I was like, I might as well upgrade because I have to replace them already. So then I ended up putting Mopar OEM Stage 1 lowering springs on the car. It lowered the front a good amount, but the back it didn't do, it barely made a difference at all in the back. So it really wasn't worth it, but is what it is. So went to We Are Mopar with the wrap, the lowering springs, the tint, the drag radials, whatever. A decent amount done to the car, but nothing crazy. And when I got back, the mod bug bit me. I said that. Mod bug bit me, and I just I started modding it. I was like, all right, you know what? I started talking to a local shop, Boost Performance, and I was like, you know what? Maybe we'll just tune it. And I'll just tune it, maybe put some meth on it, because they recommended meth. Everyone at that shop recommends methanol. That was my plan, and so I started ordering. I went to talk to him. We're going to do the methanol kit, intake, and a tune. Maybe pick up like 75 horsepower, because the tunes are pretty conservative on these from the factory. So the plan was just pick up like 75 horsepower, and then right before I did, I was like, well, if I'm already paying for the tune, because with HP, they use HP, you have to pay for the credits to unlock the transmission tune, or the transmission computer, as well as the engine computer. So you're already paying for that, plus you got to pay for a tune on top of that, which averages around $500 just for the tune. So you're talking like $750, $800 for a tune with the HP credits. And I was like, well, I might as well do a few more mods to make the tune and the credits worth it. So I ended up getting a JBA Cat Delete, which I have a video on here that I installed myself. I did the JBA Cat Delete. I bought an LMI intake, and we decided to do stage 2 dual methanol kit on the car. And as I was dropping this stuff off, he talked me into doing the upper pulley, and I was like, well, the upper pulleys are really inexpensive for these cars. It's just kind of the other stuff that goes along with it, as well as the labor, because you have to pull the blower off. And I was going to Vegas, so I decided, all right, I'll drop the car off while I'm in Vegas. Car will be done when I get back. And so that's what I did. I got a 265 upper. I got the anti-slip from B. Woody. I did all new B. Woody billet idlers. I did the LMI intake, the methanol kit, the cat delete. I already had a mid-muffler delete, which was like one of the first things I did besides the tires. And that was pretty much it. And the car made 787 on a really hot day, like 95, 98 degrees out, like super hot day, made 787. It probably would have made 800 on a good day, but yeah, it was like 90 something degrees out that day, like 7,000 DA. So, but honestly, it was really fast. Like I remember when I picked it up, I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna get in trouble in this thing. I'm gonna put a video here that Austin videoed me. Austin actually took me to pick up my car when I got back from Vegas. And man, I just took off, and that thing just hooked and went. It was definitely a fun time with the car. Like, it was simple bolt-ons. I didn't know anything about the methanol system at this point. I just knew kind of how it worked. I didn't know. If you do some research, there's a lot of Hellcats that have failed on methanol. Now that could be from installation, from tuning. There's a number of things, but it just seems that methanol doesn't work that well on these cars. And I have a few buddies that have methanol and nothing is wrong with their car. But I have seen a few people, and I believe it's probably user error, but it's just something you got to pay attention to. These people probably weren't paying attention to it. So we'll get to that part though. So the car was really fast at that point for a street car on 20-inch radials, like full interior, completely nothing taken out, no lightweight mods at all. The car is super fun at that point. And I tried to go into the track, blew the freaking tires off, and some time went by, and I decided, okay, next thing I want to do is I want to do the lower pulley because I want to pin the crank. But I didn't pin the crank originally because I thought, what's the point of paying for the labor of someone being down there when you got to pin the crank and do the lower at the same time anyways. So finally I had saved up the money and I did the lower pulley, pinned the crank, and at that point the car's making more boost, so I had to get 1050 ID injectors. And at that time we also decided that we would up the methanol kit. So we changed the nozzles on it, sprayed a little bit more meth, and the car made 850 right to the tire. Also did one-step Kohler spark plugs. So lower pulley, pin the crank, new belt tire, I need 1050 injectors, one-step Kohler and changed the nozzles on the methanol. So the car made 850 in the tire, super fun. But I remember the first time I drove the car, I took it out, I was real excited about it, and then I made another pull, and it went, and then it kind of just fell off, like as if something was slipping or wasn't getting boost or something. So we went to Lubbock to a Caffeine and Cars over there, and Kevin and I were doing a pull, and we were like neck and neck, and I'm like, what's wrong with the car? And I'm looking up, and it's only making like 11 PSI. I had a little boost gauge up here. It had the methanol and the boost also there, and I'm like, 11 PSI, what the heck is wrong? So I actually slowed down, did another pull, and I saw it go up to 21, come back to 9, 11, and go up slowly, but kind of max out like 16, 17. So now I know that the belt was slipping, but at the time, I was like, what the heck's wrong with the car? Like, I paid someone to do all this work and to tune it. And so I took it back to Boost. They looked at the car. One of them thought it was the transmission slipping. The other one thought the torque management and the computer was kicking it out, which is really prevalent in these cars. The torque management does like to kick in if the transmission is not tuned correctly. So at this point, I was honestly kind of frustrated, and I don't want to get into that whole story, but I still have a really good friendship with Boost Performance, and I highly recommend them. I wouldn't say no one to go there, but I think as far as my needs and what I was trying to do with the car at that point had kind of changed. I started doing more research, started talking to people that were running in the low 9s, and kind of getting in with the little bit faster crowd that's with the Hellcats on the East Coast and on the West Coast, and just kind of started doing more research like I usually do. And I think that was my problem though. When I first bought the Hellcat, I didn't really do my research on the car and what mods had worked. Plus at this time, the Hellcat had only been out like a year and a half, going on like its second year. And people just weren't modding them like crazy, but they were modding them but didn't know what worked and didn't work. There was no really, people were just doing their own kind of trial and error stuff. So at this point I started doing more research, more Hellcat stuff was coming out, I was getting active on the forum, and decided, you know what, I'm going to switch tuners. And I'd heard about Tim Barth through a couple other people, realized he's really big in the Mopar scene. He's been around it for a long time, and he's really good with the new gen Hemis. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to look into that, see what it takes to go through him. I already have all the mods, I just kind of want to have him tune it. And when I reached out to him, he said, scrap the methanol kit, take it off, let's go E85. And I was like, well, we do have E85 accessible. A lot of my previous boosted cars had been on E85, so I was really familiar with it. And he just said the methanol kits there's too many failures with them. Obviously, like I said, people have had really good luck with them, but I didn't want to take any chances at this point. So I decided to switch to Tim Barth, which I had to get a Diablo unlocked PCM. I could not use HP at that point. I had to get the Diablo Trinity. I had to go to 1350 injectors, 1300s, whatever they are, and I had to get a new intake. I'm trying to think if I did anything else. No, I think that's it. I also did the drive shaft actually the second time when I went back to Boost to do the lower. I forgot I did the drive shaft. So I do have a drive shaft from Livernois. So it took me like a week or two, but I got all the parts in, put the stuff on, and was ready to street tune with Tim, which was very easy. I highly recommend Tim Barth if you're in the Hellcat game and you're trying to make a little bit more power. No matter how much power you want to make, I think Tim Barth is awesome. The car drivability is awesome. You wouldn't even know it had that much power until you get on it and then you realize, holy shit, this thing's fast. Also I'd do a boosted pump, that's what it was. So did boosted pump, the injectors, bigger injectors, had to get a new intake, took the methanol kit off, and did all the Diablo stuff. So we did a street tune, car's running good, awesome. I ordered 17s because I realized at 800 or 787 what the car was making before, that was when I took it to the track and just blew the tires off. I never took it to the track on the 850 tune. So before, when I was making 787, I realized the 20s weren't enough for that, and so when I was going through the whole thing with Tim Barth, I decided to order 17s at the time, some Race Stars. I'll put a picture here, and I really like the Race Stars. It's a good tire, a good wheel, and enables you to put a 305 45 ET Street R tire on there, which is a really sticky tire and still drivable as long as there's not like a huge rainstorm or anything. So decided to do that at the same time, and took the car back to the track to do some logs actually on a test and tune night, and the car just kept fuel cutting. So I sent the logs to Tim. He's like, yep, sometimes boosted pump works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the elevation, the DA, and I had to switch to dual pumps. So I decided about a week or two later, I ordered the Livernois dual drop-in pump kit. So I think it's dual 410s in the tank with a 4 billet top hat. So I wired those in, we retuned the car, car's awesome. So then a roll race event was coming up, and so I was really excited to run the car for the first time in like an actual event with the new tune and the new power and everything. And by the way, I never dynoed the car when I switched to Tim Barth, so I'm not sure exactly how much power it makes. I have not been on a dyno since it made 850. I don't know if it makes any more than that, if it makes any less, but the difference is that I was on 91 pump gas with a stage 2 dual nozzle methanol kit, spraying a shit ton of meth, versus going straight E85. So I don't know exactly what the car makes, but it is only on 15.5 PSI down here at this elevation according to the logs, whereas people with similar setup are making like 20 to 21 PSI in different elevations. Anyways, besides the point, the day before the roll race event, that's when I blew my transmission, and you guys know the whole story behind that. Blew the transmission. It's kind of like a freak accident thing, also partially my fault, being stupid with the car. Anyways, car was down for a week or two, got it to the dealer, decided to have the dealer do it, put a new OEM one with a new torque converter, and had to do a whole new harness, engine harness, because the harness was fried. Got the car back, put a diff brace on at that time also, and hadn't really run the car much. Decided I was just going to go straight to 15s. It's kind of like sometimes when you do something, you decide to do all these other things at the same time, and the car ends up being down much longer than you anticipate, which is really prevalent in the car scene. It's just, that's how it goes. It's like the car's already down. It's like, what else should I do to it? And so at that time, I decided to do the 15-inch conversion, and yeah. So that the car was down for a little bit at that point. Also, got the car back. Finally got into the 10s. Was really excited about that. Was running like 10.5 first pass. I was like, man, this is awesome. Car's running good. And actually, no, I ran 10.5. On the 17s before I switched to the 15s, that's right. So I did make a couple passes on a test and tune night again with 17s, and decided at that point I need to take the car to the next level and do the 15-inch conversion. So I did the rear 15-inch conversion, went out and started running like 10.19 was my fastest at that point, and I was really happy with the car, but I really wanted to break into the 9s. And then, you know, I start realizing how high the DA is and how hot it was over the summer, and like all these factors I'm trying to fight. But at the end of the day, I still wanted to run a 9. I didn't care what the DA was, what the elevation was. I wanted to be able to take this car anywhere I went and run a 9. So, hadn't run a 9 yet, but decided to go to Dallas again for We Are Mopar this year. And before I went out there, I decided to change the car up a bit. So I did the Kirky seats in the front. I took out the back seat, put the Mopar rear seat delete. I'm trying to think when I did the ice tank. I think I did the ice tank as I was doing the 15-inch conversion. I think it was right after I did the 15-inch conversion I did the ice tank. Sorry, there's so many mods now. I'm trying to add up when I did them all. So yeah, and then right before I blew my transmission, not right before, but a couple months before, I did rewrap the car satin black. I took the digital camo wrap off shortly after We Are Mopar the first time I went, and paint corrected the car, and then decided that I wanted to wrap it again. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and toyed around with a few ideas. I know I'm backtracking. I just remembered I got this big wrap sitting in front of me. But Kevin actually surprised me for my birthday and had me wrap the car satin black. And then sometime after that, Travis was out here, and he ceramic coated the wrap, and that's how it survived the mini fire from the transmission blowing. So that's why my satin black, if you see in person, it's got like a glossy sheen to it, is because it is ceramic coated. Anyways, back to the second time at We Are Mopar. So I did the Kirky seats, had to order some planted seat brackets, a Cypher harness bar, some 5-point harnesses from Crow, and then I did the Mopar SRT seat delete in the rear, which is the same one as the Demon, just without the Demon logo, but it is from Mopar. And I'd also done the ice tank. The ice tank drove me nuts. I redid it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times with the help of Joseph, Jacob, and it was just a pain in the ass. Finally, how we ended up getting it running perfectly was we decided to finally take out the front pump, that is the factory one, and just run the ice tank straight to the supercharger and then have it hit the heat exchangers on the way back before it recirculates. So that's what we ended up doing. But when I went to Dallas, I still had ice tank problems, and this is when Demonology had called Kevin and I out to race him. Kevin unfortunately had some things going on with his car that night. He broke a line on the ice tank, computer's freaking out, and this is when we think his spark plugs were kind of on their last limb, which we figured out later, but we didn't know at the time because he doesn't have a computer to log his HP tuning. But anyways, I went to Dallas, got my first 9.7 pass, my first 9-second pass. I ran a 9.7, and that night I ended up running 3 9.7s back to back with 180 to 190 degree intake air temperatures, which is way too freaking high. So the car cuts timing at above 140, and I'm over here in the 180, 190, and it was only on the top end. So but I ended up beating Demonology. It was a super fun race. I had a great time at We Are Mopar. So it was a good time. It's a long weekend, but it's worth it. And it's a really cool car show. And I'm so glad I got to run my car at different DA, different elevation. I want to say they're like 500 elevation, and the DA that night was about 2,400, and I was running 9.7s. And I think I could have gone quicker that night, but I still had the ice tank problem. So it wasn't until I brought the car home that we started working on the whole ice tank issue. And like I said, ended up deleting the factory pump. So the ice tank runs directly to the supercharger with the coldest water, and then on its way back, before it comes to the tank, it goes through the heat exchangers, kind of cools off the water a little bit. That way you're not just throwing boiling hot water, not boiling hot, but really hot water back into the tank, and it keeps it cooler a lot longer. I do want to switch to an external pump that can flow a little bit more, but the rule in there is working decently. I haven't had a problem with it. Whereas I know a few people, such as Kevin, his rural pump went out in like a week. So I try and keep an eye on the IATs, and when that pump goes, I'll probably do an external, like a miser or something like that. Anyways, came back. Really still wanted to run a 9 here, so I'd kind of been going to some tests and tunes, trying to get the car going, and just couldn't get the car to hook up like I wanted it to. And finally, the car was a little bit lighter, obviously, with the Kirkies and the rear seat delete. And I took the car. A Saturday test and tune / bracket race had been canceled due to weather, but they had it on a Sunday. Our Saturdays, the track hooks a lot better because it's radials and slicks only, and they're doing bracket racing, so they're constantly laying rubber down. Whereas Friday is like a street test and tune, so you do not get the best prep just because of the different tires that are on the surface. So Saturdays are usually the best, and that's what I was really trying to hit to get the 9. And I remember it got canceled. I was so upset. And then they opened it up on Sunday. They decided to move the race to Sunday because the weather was perfect. I woke up at 8 o'clock. I woke Kennedy up. I was like, we're going to the track. I took the car out there with a gas tank and an air compressor, a small little air compressor, the one that comes with the car, and went 9.9 on my first pass, and I was so excited. I know, it's funny because like the car's so much faster now, and there's so many cars out there that like skip 9 seconds, they skip 8 seconds, you know, but for this car and what it had done to it, it's still just a bolt-on car with the 85. Yes, I'd switched out the seats, but it's still full interior car, just lighter seats. And, you know, it's not like it's a freaking drag car, but it was really cool for me to run a 9. I don't know. I guess the only way you can understand that feeling is like you'd been working for 6 to 8 months on a project, and you had this end goal, and you finally hit the end goal, and it wasn't over, because then the next day I was like, okay, how do I go faster? So even that day, actually, I ran 3 times that day. The second pass I made, the fuel pump fuse actually went out. Scared the shit out of me. I thought, oh my god, my car finally runs 9s and now it breaks because it can't handle running a 9. And pulled it back to the pits, realized it was just a fuse. Really cool. Switched that out. Went back, ran a 3rd time, ran a 9 again. And at that point, the DA started going back up. So the DA that day when I ran, I was running like 9.94, 9.98. And the DA was like, I think 5,500 that night. So, I mean that morning, not night. Excuse me. So, I don't know, I was really excited with the car. I was really happy, but at the same time, I was like, okay, now how do I go 9.8s here? And so I decided, okay, I don't want to go for more power yet, but let's see where we can lose some weight. So I took the whole factory exhaust off. I put little turn downs right after the cat delete. I decided, I've always wanted to do the 15-inch conversion. I just, it's a pretty expensive deal, you know. You got to do the conversion, which is $1,000, and then you got to do the wheels and a new set of wheels and tires. Luckily, I sold my race stars pretty quickly, so I ended up doing a 15-inch Billet Specialties wheel in the front with a Hoosier tire. I really wanted the Mickey Thompson ET fronts, but they had been sold out for a while, and I still need to order a pair actually for next year. But right now it's just running the Hoosier. It's pretty much the same tire, it's just a Hoosier up front. And it's a 28-inch tall tire. I think it's like 3.5 inch or 4.5 inch wide. But so I did the 15-inch conversion up front. The wheels weren't clearing, had to run a little spacer in there, and took the car out and started doing the list race at the same time. And I was doing test and tune, trying to still run 9s there in between. And having tons of fun with the car at this point. I'd taken the car one time out to Oklahoma City, and the car didn't run good up there, so I never even got a chance to run at their elevation or their DA. And so when I got back, and I was just trying to run a 9 here, and then I ran the 9s, and it's like I want to go faster, I want to go deeper into the 9s, and finally I did the 15-inch front conversion, and took the exhaust off, did a couple other small things, and went 9.71. Same time as my fastest time in Dallas. So that's how I knew the ice tank made a huge difference. I mean, the DA was still, I think, 5,000 at this point. It was still really high DA, 3,500 elevation, about 70 degrees out. And that's how I knew the ice tank made a huge difference. Plus, obviously, I lost some unsprung weight up front. But yeah, I went 9.71. I was like, my fastest pass now in the car, in its entirety, is at this shitty ass DA. So after that, I was like, I've got to go to lower DA, better elevation, weather cooler, like all these things. I got to go to it. So a couple weeks ago, we went to Oklahoma City, and first pass, obviously, as you know, if you watched the video, car didn't run that good. It did the same limp mode thing that it did last time to OKC. I was real frustrated. Deleted the codes, reset the computer, reload the tune in there, and car went 9. Well, I did one more pass, and the car just blew the tires off. Did a pass after that, and the car went 9.5 and 149 mile an hour. I was really excited, and at that point, I knew the car could go faster. It was like a 143, 144, 60 foot, and I know I can get the car into the 1.3, 60 foots. That's what it's set up for. I just haven't cut one yet, so I've got to figure that out. But I was really excited with the car, but they kicked me off after that, obviously. So I did get one more pass, but it wasn't anything notable as I shut it down because I blew the tires off anyways. But they did kick me out for safety equipment. So now, this is where I'm at with the car now. And like I said, we're leaving this week. We do have our list race. I think they're going to do it the 27th now. They're going to try and get in one more before the weather really starts to come down. So hopefully get another crack at the track here. Obviously, I'm not going to run any faster than I ran in Oklahoma City because the DA was about 2,000 and the DA never gets that low here. I think the lowest it ever gets is like 3,500, but you're talking like 20, 30 degree weather. So realistically, when it's racing, when we're able to race at the track in like the 50 degree weather, 40 degree weather, if they're out there, probably still like in the 4,000 DA, I would assume. So I'm not going to break any of my personal best, but it'll still be fun to get the car out another time before we close it down completely for winter. Have talked about going to Streetcar Takeover November 3rd and 4th, I think. But the only problem is I just don't have the cage and I don't have the funds to get a cage before then. And I don't even think it would come in time anyways. The cage is going to run me about $3,000. So don't think that's going to happen before Oklahoma City. So probably, most likely the car will be done after the list race. And at that point, I'm going to start cracking down on some suspension parts, get some safety stuff, and I want to finally attack the suspension and see if we can get this 60 foot down. So I'm cutting 143s, 144s, really like a 145 60 foot consistently on the car with pretty good prep. And I think the lowering springs are hindering me from cutting better 60 foots. I think they're too stiff. I think they need a little more give, and so I can weight transfer a little better and put some more traction on the back tire. So that's the plan, is kind of attack the suspension. I haven't decided yet because there's still a few options that are good, and I've seen some good stuff from certain options. And same thing, like I said, with the Hellcat, people are still trying to figure it out. But gonna do all control arms, either shocks or coilovers, all that in the rear, and then obviously a shock or coilover up front. Just don't know exactly, but I do think the lowering springs are hindering me from cutting in the 1.3 60 foots. But it's still pretty good for completely stock IRS suspension, cutting low 1.4s. And I've seen people cut 1.3s on a little bit better track and they don't have the lowering spring. So like I said, I think the lowering spring is hindering me from just a little bit better 60 foot, but I don't think I could cut 1.3s by just changing the springs. But I don't know. And I probably won't find out because I'm going to switch the whole entire suspension setup before next year. So the goal is to consistently cut like mid 1.3s, maybe even low 1.3s, but definitely mid 1.3s anywhere I go on decent prep, and maybe on a really good prep track, a really, really low 1.3. I mean, it probably could cut a 1.2, but it's going to have to be a really sticky track. And at that point, you're kind of playing with fire if you're going to blow the rear diff out or break an axle or something. So